he's been messing around with computers since a lot of you weren't even born, I think. Like, I'm looking in the audience here. I could see I know one person that wasn't born yet, my son right there. I could see the kids in the back over there. I know they weren't born yet. But Jose's been messing around with chips for a really long time. And I think it's a fascinating story. And I think talking about his history with chips will bring us full circle. So I think it's important to kind of give everybody a little bit of your background in the hardware side.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having us here. This has been a fun event, talking a little bit about Bittensor and what's happening there. I am a GPU architect by training. I worked on some of the first GPUs in 1992.
92 is when the first GPUs came out. Wow, there you go.
Back then they were not...
I thought it was last year.
They were not used for 3D graphics. They were used for the bigger display that you could have just to have your big spreadsheets, right? And eventually I started working at Intel. I worked at Intel for 25 years, and that was quite an honor. As you know, Intel has gone through its financial troubles recently.
What year did you start working at Intel?
In 98.
98, wow.
98, yeah. So I left 2 years ago to focus on this and to start BT Labs and to work with this community, which has been very rewarding. Before I was comfortable with crypto, I started working on a Bitcoin chip at Intel in 2020. We introduced it in 2022. It takes like a long time to make a chip.
A Bitcoin chip.
A Bitcoin chip. So we made the first Bitcoin ASIC. Sometimes Bitcoiners, we call an ASIC the whole system, but an ASIC is actually an application-specific integrated circuit. It's just a chip, okay? And some of those systems carry about 300 of them inside. So these chips are, they're expensive, they're hard to make, they're a $25 million investment. In my last couple of years at Intel, I was in charge of custom chips. So I was the VP of custom chips, and a lot of those were AI chips. But I also had someone from our lab that came over and said, hey, look, we have this thing that if we put some firmware around it, we could mine Bitcoin. And I had no clue what Bitcoin was. And I was like, okay, tell me more. And next thing you know, we launched the first non-Chinese ASIC to mine Bitcoin. And we bring it to market in what was about to crash. We bring it in 2022, right before prices really go down. But we were flying high. We thought it was really cool. And
did you ever have any secret servers on the side at Intel that you guys were just like, let's run these on our own?
It's not even secret. We had to test the chip before we ship it.
Right.
So we would put it in some of our data centers to run the protocol to make sure that it was compliant and proper. But because Intel was a little conservative, like many older corporations are, we mined Bitcoin not to a public pool, but to kind of a fake pool. And it passed all the tests, and we never kept the Bitcoin, which was not real Bitcoin. It would have been worth almost $700 million if we would have kept it, if it was real. But that's something we don't like to...
Could have bought a lot of pizza with that.
Yeah, we don't like to talk about that. But the bottom line is that I lost the fear of what is this crypto thing, this internet funny money, and all that stuff. And I made a lot of great friends in this industry, and that's why I come here every year. It's just really, really fun. Entrepreneuring, sovereign, financial. It's just a great, great space. So we had to shut that down. Those assets were sold to Block, which is public information. They're a wonderful supporter of Bitcoin. That's a company you don't have to convince to do a Bitcoin chip. They are in here to promote it and to support it for the community. So we made a lot of friends in Texas and in other places selling the chip. And this was fun because I was working really hard on the efficiency of the chip, the cost, and all the value proposition of the technology. But my main claim to fame was that we were not Chinese. So we actually said this is the first chip made in America, and so we took that with pride.
You were ahead of your time.
I think that was the value proposition. It was actually, after COVID, it was the heat of the supply chain disruption. So it was a little controversial to be making Bitcoin chips on the side while we were, halting the Ford factory from making F-150 cars because they didn't have the right chips to be able to put, all the components together. So, but time went on and we made a lot of good friends. Bitcoin went down, Intel lost some money. I decided to leave and focus on this. And then a lot of our friends in Bitcoin world that already had infrastructure, already had wonderful energy, electric power agreements, wanted to pivot to AI. Because AI was paying a little more than Bitcoin was when Bitcoin was 17,000. And they found out about GPUs. And so they started to call me again and said, now you're out consulting. And so that's how I got a little bit into helping that infrastructure world make AI infrastructure work. And many of them that you know of are, have diversified and have a little bit Bitcoin and a little bit of AI on the side. And then you fast forward to Bittensor, and here we are, providing demand and monetizing their assets, pretty well. Compared to the traditional space that has to sell to enterprises, which is about a 9-month process. It's a long process. So we're having fun with that.
So you come in and we were having a conversation earlier about the H100s, H200s, and the influx of the B200s that are coming now. And you gave a great analogy of this. So
yeah, I don't remember what I said because I make a lot of stupid jokes about restaurants, but but the H100, H200s, those are very large memory footprints. So a lot of the models that are coming out that include reasoning, like the DeepSeek models, are very large. So those are the ones that are very popular right now to provide inference. Just to give you a little bit of a benchmark. Today, Bittensor, through some of the subnets of people represented here and other places, they provide inferencing, right, as tokens, different token, not a crypto token, but an AI token, to applications that buy them, at a subsidy, because the Bittensor network kind of subsidizes it. And the DeepSeek moment in January, when the model comes out R1 and is just as good as OpenAI in some benchmarks. Really made a shift to jump into this for a lot of folks that had the ability, or they already had the GPUs idle, right? So that's why folks from HydraHost or other places started to be able to see an increase in demand from these GPUs. The newest generation, it comes out every year, and Jensen from NVIDIA will tell you that the old one is not good, the new one is the better one, and it's true, but you can still get a lot out of the previous generation. And those are the ones that NVIDIA likes to pitch and sell to our providers. Oh yeah, I think I told you, NVIDIA likes to sell the top of the line, the Ferrari of the line, but many of our friends that are building infrastructure, they're building, a rental agency, like a Hertz rental. You don't need a lot of Ferraris, you need a lot of Corollas, right? So you need to make sure that you're procuring the right equipment so that you have the right business model.
Right, you can have the Ferrari to get everybody to think they're going to go rent that thing, but nobody actually does.
And it's very expensive to maintain, and
right.
it does the same thing to take you from A to B. So at that point, that's the balance that we all in this industry are trying to make work to make it successful for our customers.
So, do you think that the models keep changing, so they keep running more efficiently on these existing chips, or do you think that the whole industry starts shifting over to B200s and beyond over the next couple of years, or does the software continue to enhance and the existing infrastructure or the fleet of Hertz cars continue to work?
We're not sponsored by Hertz, but yeah, it could be Avis, it could be other. I think the answer is both. So your answer is, which one is going to be more important, more interesting? And because the whole AI demand has grown so much, and it's such like $1 trillion opportunity, you will still have the frontier models. They're large. The next big thing will require all the hardware you can throw at it. But then you still have a lot of good enough hardware that will still have a long life. This is one of the things about GPU investments is that you can buy them and amortize them over 3 years, but even after 3 years, they still have another 3-4 years in them. So today we see in the marketplaces that support Bittensor GPUs that were launched maybe 6-7 years ago, and we can still monetize them to 40-50 cents an hour and renting them out because they are perfectly good to run a model that you may need to solve any problem.
We're seeing that the H200s are being used just to run DeepSeek, right? That's all everybody wants to run on them. But all the other, like if you look inside of Shoots, you can see exactly what GPUs everybody is running and what's getting used on what chip. And it's fascinating that everything is DeepSeek across the board.
That's right. That is the sweet spot right now. But as things evolve, you will see. This changes all the time. I mean, that's the funny thing about this business is that in a month, it's like I call it like dog years, right? And one year in Bittensor is like 7 years, because everything is happening very, very fast. And besides the open source models that we can all use because it's permissionless and it's we all own them. You don't need permission to run DeepSeek. We have a lot of startups in this space, a lot of subnets are trying to build something native here. And so the next big milestone you'll see probably by the end of the summer, and probably sooner because everything moves so fast, is the people like Subnet 4 or others like that training a more than 800 billion parameter model. Natively on Bittensor. I mean, we hit the GPT 3.5 size, which was, I don't know, 70 billion or something like that, maybe 9 months ago, and it's just moving that fast. So when you look at that, suddenly Bittensor competes with the state of the art. So not just because we're cheaper and open and crypto, it's actually the power of the crowdsourcing can be pretty overwhelming. You're building the largest computer. I mean, Bitcoin hashing, SHA-256 hashing, is the largest distributed supercomputer in the world. It just happens to be very specific to Bitcoin hashing, but it is math and it's a large computer. The same thing's happening here, but the utility comes in all the many subnets that are being powered and creating a different type of utility, not just securing a financial network, but creating actually intelligence products that we're all using, and many of us are using things that maybe are created on Bittensor, and we don't know, right? There's that subnet that makes 3D models from text, and those models are going to create objects that are showing up in some next Fortnite or something like that, right? So things like that are very, very powerful, and we're seeing them today. I read a quote from Const, one of the founders of this network, just recently, where he said that Bittensor is the first mainstream use of a crypto product that is not a financial instrument, right? So the first mass adoption of something on crypto that is not a financial instrument. This is, incredible testament to the value of blockchain.
Well, but you could look at compute, which is the biggest thing on the network, is kind of a financial,
It's an asset, right?
Yeah.
And then the fact that it creates utility that other people can use, not just to power the Tau token and make Tau secure, it actually provides assets to the, financial crimes prevention, to people that are creating, agents and other
leads.
Things. Super fun.
So what do you see happening on the chip side next? Like, do you think that anybody else can compete with NVIDIA? Like, is there, other up-and-coming companies that will pop up with a chip? And, a little harder to pop up with a chip than a model. But from what you know internally and of being tied in with the hardware side of things, do you think that within a year we're going to see something that's just going to blow away what exists today, or even what we know is on the roadmap?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that you see is that open source models allow for some of these other players to participate and break kind of that moat that NVIDIA has created with CUDA, right? It's a very good product and it's here to stay, but because of the size and breadth of AI workloads that are out there, there is a large space still for ASICs that are just going to accelerate specific parts of a primitive in that math that can beat general purpose GPU, because GPUs are programmable, just very, very large, complex, processors, just parallel processors that in some ways could be outrun by very, very specific chips that do that. We saw that on Bitcoin, right? You could mine Bitcoin in CPUs, then you could mine them on GPUs, and eventually you mine them on ASICs. So this is happening now. AI runs on GPUs, but ASICs are coming.
Interesting. And what do you think that does to the ecosystem of the mining side? Does it take those H100s and H200s and beyond and make them obsolete, or does it just enhance and provide an alternative ecosystem.
At some point, they provide a competitive advantage because they can be additional accelerators. So they can take a specific part of whatever you do on shoots and maybe take the transformer part of the pipeline and make it a little faster and then give an edge to something. But at the end, it's very hard to integrate that in software, right? So at the end, this is not something that happens next year, but this is something that is on the roadmap for everybody, and that will adopt it whether we like it or not. It's coming.
Interesting. And what do you think is going to happen here over the next couple of years? And you've been at this for a long time. And what do you think happens with the decentralized networks? Do you think that we ever see a snapback to people just wanting to be centralized on these things? Do you think that the decentralized, idea kind of people say, hey, that great concept, but for my medical records, that's not going to work?
No, absolutely. This is here to stay. This is unavoidable. It's transformational. There's no going back. This is like when somebody says, peeing in a pool. You can't take it back. We were just blessed to be invited last week to DC on a Capitol Hill delegation that was led by DCG, our friends at DCG. They're leaders in this, and they've been advocating for policy in crypto and Bitcoin from day one, right? And because of their size and their connections, they do this for all of us. So I was, blessed to be invited, specifically on the panels related to decentralized AI. So you should see the face of the regulators and and senators and representatives from all of our dear states, thinking, what the heck is decentralized AI, right? So now you're putting concepts that are very scary and new, crypto, next to AI, and mixing them together and blowing their mind.
They're like, Trump is out to get us.
Well, on both sides, people have very, very good concerns, but the truth is that there's already laws in the books that help regulate these things. We don't need more laws. And at the end of the day, it's going to touch everything we do, and it's a part of moving the economy, and we want the U.S. to be a leader in it. So the enterprises have always been scared. First, you need to have your servers on the basement. Nobody trusts the cloud. Then you put it in the cloud, then you trust the basement. So then, wherever you are, the AI is going to be on both places, and all the compute is going to be in different places. And the moment you decentralize it, you just create tools. We're turning features on the chips that we were not turning on before to provide this confidential compute. You'll hear this a lot more this year. It's something that Shoots and others are already implementing. And what that means is I don't want to say it in a public, place to be too coarse, but it's like using a condom, right? Because, now it's kind of an open relationship. Your servers are everywhere, so I guess I can take that back. I'm sure this is being recorded. But what I mean is that when you're in a monogamous relationship with your server, right, and at Amazon, you trust Amazon. And Amazon is securing the basement and securing the protocol to you. But when you are working in a decentralized manner, you need to turn on all the features and all the chips that make sure that cryptographically you're proving that your request from top to bottom through the pipeline is secure. And that's what everybody here is working on, and that exists. So that way the medical and financial segments that actually care very much about where the data is going, and they are regulated to do so, not just because they care, but they have to protect it, can work in this space.
Do you have any concerns and things that worry you about the AI getting out of control, especially in a decentralized format?
No, but I think we're fighting the David Goliath story. So I think the fear is, I'm a Silicon Valley guy. I came from the big company. The big companies have more resources and are a little more organized than us because we're all, individuals. So I think there's power in numbers. That's why I created BT Labs, to be kind of a conglomerate, like a horizontal force to help us, move together, not to compete with each other, but to compete with the big guys. And right now, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are 80% of the market for what we do. So for them, it's easy to send somebody to Washington and say, don't trust this stuff, this Mickey Mouse stuff. And it has happened before. I mean, Linux came out in 1991, became open source. And at that point, I used to work at IBM, making an operating system that was more secure. And at some point, even Microsoft called Linux a cancer. They had to take that back a few years ago. And right now, the biggest subsidiary of IBM, that is the fastest growing, that makes most money, is Red Hat. Red Hat is a Linux company, right? And the internet runs on Linux, doesn't run on Windows, right? So I think this is what you're going to see. My biggest fear is that the big guys are going to try to slow us down.
Do you think they can? Do you think it's possible? Or do you think that this decentralized format is here to stay and can overtake. Because this didn't exist before, right? The reward mechanism wasn't here like this previously.
That's right. I think we're here to stay, and we're going to win if there's no laws in the books that protect them or protect their monopolies. I think if we continue to work in an open market, we will win like Bitcoin wins. We don't need permission from banks to have Bitcoin. We don't need permissions from Google to be able to run our servers the way we want. So I think, we have the power to do it, and customers eventually will have more choices. I mean, right now, look at Perplexity. Perplexity is, everybody knows a little bit about what they do. It's kind of a, ChatGPT mixed with search. They produce a result back to you in 250 tokens per second. Right now, the top of the line queries that are being done in subnet 19 in Bittensor operate at 400 tokens per second. So how come, a bunch of, disorganized, decentralized people put together a product that beats the state of the art? I think that has to scare the big guys, and as long as we are all free to compete, we will win.
And so what is your company doing specifically? Like, how do you get involved with the projects? How does it work?
We are providing infrastructure to a lot of subnets that need the work. We're professionally mining in some of them, just to provide kind of that steady professional. We're doxed. We're not hidden. We're reputable professional miners that provide that service. We're incubating a couple of subnets. 36 is ours. We're supporting Janice in this effort as well. And I'm creating a product that I'll announce when we're in Paris for the conference in 2 weeks to help the long tail of customers so that we can take Bittensor to the next crowd.
That's great. It's certainly an exciting time. There's a big conference in Paris in 2 weeks, and they have a whole 2 days dedicated towards Bittensor, and they have all the amazing people that are involved in Bittensor will be there if anybody wants to hop over to Paris and then get a croissant and a cappuccino. But it's it's coming mainstream, and I don't know. I'm excited about it.
Me too. I'm here to stay as well.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fun. It has a flavor to it that is. I remember when Brock and Scott would talk about, come to these early Bitcoin conferences, and I would go, and it would look exactly like this, and it would be like. Except you guys have a lot less tattoos than the guys that were at the early Bitcoin things. They had a lot more tattoos, and they were selling drugs and stuff like that. And now it's just people selling intelligence. So that's a little bit different. So I think that you're going to constantly see that evolution happen. But it's great to hear your insight, especially understanding the in-depth knowledge that you have around each individual chip, and it's not just some theoretical thing that's happening out in the cloud. You understand exactly what's happening on that chip, and that provides a lot of value to all these companies that you're working with, because it's not just about the incentive mechanism. That's great. It's a very important piece of this, but your knowledge around this is fantastic. So those companies are very lucky to work with you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the invitation. This is a really fun space, and this was a great event. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys got some good information about this. I think that, we wanted to have some talks about Bittensor so that people understood what was going on. I hope everybody out there buys some Tau and converts it into an alpha token. Just the whole process of getting it done is education process in and of itself. You can buy Tau, stake it. It's making what, like 20-something%? 20% if you stake Tau. It could be down 20% a day. So, but it could, but you could stake to the sub tokens, and some of these the alpha tokens are paying 115, 125, 200%. And these are some really good subnets as well. Like 64 is paying, I think we're staked there, they're paying 115% a year. The thing moves all over the place, but still, when you're making 115% a year, there's a lot of wiggle room for the token to move, because you're going up and down, and it's so hard to take our money out of there. because we're making so much money just by the rewards that we're getting from staking it all the time. It's I never want to sell it, but every once in a while the token goes high enough, and you're like, I got to sell some of this, But then you start doing the math, and you're like, I'm making 115% a year. Divide that by 365, multiply that times $1 million. Oh, what is that a day? Oh, that's a lot of money every week. Times 7, times 4. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to sell it. So I think that's the thing that everybody could do here. Just go buy $500 if you don't own it. Buy some. Get a Bittensor wallet. Convert it into a alpha token, stake the alpha token, no matter what amount you want to try it with. Just give it a shot and then watch it. Just leave it there. This could be like part of Vivek's compounding interest thing, that they could buy some Bittensor for kids when they're born and then leave it until they're like 45 and see where it goes. And I think that's for people that aren't into it yet and haven't done it, even $500. Just $1,000, $10,000, whatever you can afford, $100,000, $1 million. Do it and put it in there and watch it grow. And I think it's well worth learning a lot about it, because there's a lot of opportunity in the space, and there's going to be, they're not going to make any more of it. It's very similar to Bitcoin. It only has 21 million tokens on the core level. On the Tau side, each subnet, everybody stakes down into the subnets, so the supply exits the Tau side, right? So you're not having this constant supply from the miners that are going back into Tau. It's going into the subnets, more subnets being created, sucks more liquidity out of the Tau market, which ultimately creates less supply in the Tau market. Only 7 to 10% of the Tau tokens are staked into the subnet tokens right now, and ultimately the yield on the Tau tokens is going to go to zero. Ultimately, that's the vision here, and then people will move from Tau into alpha tokens, and more are moving in there every single day, and then the yield on the alpha tokens keeps increasing. So people will move. And when they do that, then those alpha tokens will increase in value. And I think smart businesses will figure out how to buy back their tokens in this environment. So similar to a successful public company that is buying back their stock, a business that is generating net income in this area can go back into the market, buy their token back, take out the supply, take out the liquidity out of the equation, even though the ecosystem of the alpha token underneath in the subnet is generating a lot more tokens every single day. If they're successful in their business model, they can start to buy that back and kill the liquidity, and then that's, to date you have Tau going down, alpha tokens going up, because the alpha tokens are like, oh, well, we're a bigger piece of the Tau token now, so we should go up theoretically, right? And then Tau goes up and the alpha tokens go down because they're like, oh, it's going up, we're a smaller piece of the whole. But at some point, somebody's going to buy enough of that back where it's going to break that mold, and both are going to go up in the same direction. And I think that's when you start to see really good subnets. Really good subnets are going to start to buy back those tokens, engage in the ecosystem, buy their own supply back at the same time. So as you have the Tau supply diminishing, you have the subnet supply diminishing, and it's just a supply-demand equation, and there's just not as much supply there, and so they'll both end up going up. That's just my 2 cents on the whole thing, but I encourage all of you guys to do it. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Chris.
Appreciate you coming today.